Hey everybody, welcome back. Let's get the answers to challenge number 2, shall we?
I want answers.
Okay, let's get right into the solution. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Java folder with Visual Studio Code. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to my challenge2.java file. And let's close this little file if you had that pop up for you as well. Inside my challenge2.java file, you're going to notice 3 classes. First, I have the animal class, and I'm going to go ahead and collapse this so you can see that I have the animal class here. Then I also have the dog class, which extends animal. And then also I have the snake class, which also extends animal. So in this instance, since all we wanted to do was output a print statement in the case for the dog and the snake, we just simply had to make a method here that did a little bit of a print statement. So there was nothing too complex about this. The hard part was actually figuring out the inheritance part, which is actually remembering to put the word extends. So let's get back to the animal class where most of the action is happening. So remember, we wanted a string for the name, we wanted the number of eyes, we wanted the number of legs, and we also wanted whether or not they have a tail. So these are all just the basic attributes that we created. Nothing too difficult here yet. The next part that actually gets a little bit tricky is the walk method that we talked about. So this walk method is basically going to print I am moving if it has legs, and then it's going to print I have no legs if the number of legs is 0. So all we have to do to make sure that it prints properly is do an if statement in here that just simply checks to see if the number of legs does not equal 0. So technically this is a flawed solution based on how I actually did it. A better solution would be simply just to say if number of legs is greater than 0, and that's going to make sure that they have a positive number of legs. Remember back to the error video where we just talked about this? I could potentially have had negative legs here, and that still would have worked. And we don't want that to work. We want 0 to say I have no legs. And if you somehow end up with negative legs, that shouldn't work either. Moving on to the constructor, you could definitely have set up a constructor just like this, but all we asked for was an empty constructor. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this constructor here. And let's just make sure that we have our basic empty constructor. Now, inside of our animal class, this is where I decided to put my main method. So you just have to remember that when you do your main method inside of your animal class, that when you compile and run, that you do Java animal, because animal is the class where the main method is located. And don't worry, we'll show that shortly here in a little bit. Inside of the main method though, the way that I decided to approach this, and here's a trick that I was talking about in the setup for this video. So not only did I create a dog object, but then I used the dog object to apply the variable name, and then same thing with the number of eyes, the number of legs, and has tail. The way I did it was I simply call the object's variable, and then I set it with the equal sign. So this is the one thing that we didn't explicitly talk about when we were talking about classes and things like that. We did see how to access each individual attribute, but we didn't say how to set it. But we did talk about how to set variables, so that I was hoping to kind of like take that next logical leap. And if you didn't get that, don't worry about it. It's not a super big deal. You kind of see it now. So now you know for the future, and that's the important part. But then we also go ahead and call dog walk and dog bark. So we made sure that we called dog.walk to show that the dog can walk, which is what gets you the result I am moving. And then after that, we made a snake object and basically did the same thing here. We just went ahead and set the snake's name, the number of eyes, the number of legs, and whether or not it has a tail. And then finally, we just called snake.walk to see if we can get it to walk. And then we called snake.hiss to make sure that the function worked. So let's test this out now. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and let's go ahead now and CD to our desktop. So I'm going to go CD desktop and Java. Now remember, we're going to compile this with our challenge2.java name. So Java see challenge2.java. It compiled successfully. And remember, since our main method is in our animal class, we're going to want to do Java animal. So we'll do Java animal. And now you can see that we got our results. So let's move this over and take a quick look to see if we understand where all this is coming from. I'm getting I am moving because dog.walk was called here. I get bark because dog.bark was called here. I get I have no legs because snake.walk is called here. And I also set snake's number of legs to 0. So that's a key factor. You want to make sure that you set snake's legs down to 0 before you call the walk. Otherwise, you might actually get it to say I am moving, and that would be an error that you would have received. And then finally, we called snake.hiss, which you can see here resulted in hiss. If you got something completely different than what I did, please don't worry about it. Like, let's say you did a fancy constructor or something like that. I just wanted to show you a very, very basic example because believe me, there's probably 30 to 40 answers that are possible that are better than what I just showed you right now. But I wanted to give you a very simple solution so that way you could see what a simple one looks like. And then if you come up with something better, pat yourself on the back. You deserve all the credit for that. That's pretty much all that's left for this challenge, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it to Dino in the future. Well, that completes this challenge. I hope you were able to complete it successfully, and if you were able to complete it a little differently than how I did it, that's okay. Remember that you're just learning, and we're still improving and getting better every day. I hope you managed to learn something from this challenge, and there's a lot more learning to come, so let's keep rocking, and let's keep learning. Peace out, everybody.